All right, hello, and thank you everybody for coming to day 2 of Wolfjam 2024. I'm very excited to kick off with our first talk of today with Jen Morse of Simply Health. For those of you who aren't familiar, Jen Morse is a holistic ADHD coach who blends her 25 years of coaching experience with her passion for helping people naturally transform ADHD into their superpower, and employers build resilient, inclusive teams. Specifically, she helps overwhelmed professionals with ADHD or suspected ADHD get organized, focused, and manage their time effectively so they can create a balanced life where they can thrive. Today, she's going to be focusing on reducing overwhelm for all minds, and we're going to have a sort of open conversation. So if at any point you guys have any questions or have any comments, feel free to just raise your hand. I'll come on over, and we're happy to have a conversation. But I will go ahead and pass it on over to Jen Morse.
Hey everyone, thank you so much. I was hoping to be there in person, but as things go, I caught a cold, so I'm presenting from a few miles away, just up the road. And I have to preface this by saying, if you see an errant dog walking by, I have 2 pugs and a French bulldog, so they may choose to make an appearance. Awesome, so we'll get on with the show here. All right, and it's not moving, so, best laid plans. All right, I am having technical difficulties. I can't get my slide to move.
Is just clicking through or like arrow keys or?
Yeah, just I was clicking, but I'm trying arrows and it's not working. And it was because we did this many times. Want me to stop presenting and restart, see if that helps?
Try restarting your presentation.
Okay. Can you see me now?
It's still showing the PowerPoint slides.
Okay.
Full screen yet? Oh, there we go. Now we can see it.
Awesome. All right. Perfect. Hopefully it'll let me keep clicking in this view. Okay, so as Callie said, I'm Jen Morris. I am really passionate about helping people with ADHD, but also people that are just dealing with a lot of stress and overwhelm. I think it's the most wonderful thing you can do for your body, your mind, your soul, and live a more joyful life when you're able to control stress in a better way. Okay, so it's not letting me click through. We're going to go to a different view. And we'll just do it live. How about that?
It wouldn't be a tech conference without a few technical difficulties, let's be honest.
It never fails. It just never fails. All right, so we're going to roll with this view because this is the one that's working. I can't see my notes, but that's okay. We're just going to make it happen. So, all right, here we go. So we're going to talk about overwhelm and the contributing factors. We're going to talk some about ADHD. And then we're going to talk about some really just simple strategies to make life easier. And lastly, we'll talk about how you can put these things into action. The biggest thing that I do kind of in the beginning is walk through the similarities that we all have when it comes to dealing with overwhelm and stress. So let's see, we'll get that started. All right, overwhelm. A lot of things play a factor in overwhelm. Hormones play a role in men and women. Stress and life demands, and then ADHD. In recent years, there's been a significant increase in diagnosis. We're going to look at some of those stats because it's pretty overwhelming. But first, we're going to dive into some of the information on hormones. So hormones play a huge role. A little anatomy and physiology here. It's basically that dopamine is the reward hormone, serotonin is kind of the chill, happy hormone, cortisol is the stress hormone. Estrogen and progesterone are more around women's health. Testosterone is more around men's health. But actually, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone play a role in both male and female. So it's interesting. Testosterone is known as kind of the strength hormone, where in estrogen and progesterone, it's more of the, like I said, the women's hormone, and also around some of the more feeling type things that go on. So it plays a role for all. All right, so stress and life demands. These are things that have effect on everyone in every role. So role overload and decision fatigue. Being a parent, being a caregiver, being a professional, being a dog parent, being someone that has an elderly person that they care for, right? We play multiple roles in multiple ways. Sometimes that's being a parent, sometimes that's being a child, sometimes it's kind of growing into things. But that role overload can play a huge, it can be a huge stressor for any of us. Then you put on top of that decision fatigue. So if anyone has gotten home at the end of a workday and basically said, I don't want to make any more decisions, you are not alone. Sometimes it's hard just to figure out what movie to watch or what to make for dinner, right? So those are all normal things that happen. When we're in a state where we're constantly making decisions through the day, it just gets really tiresome to make more. Work-life balance. Careers come with a lot of pressure, regardless of where you are in your career. It comes with a lot of pressure. So usually if you're starting out, you're really trying to build up your reputation, continue learning and growing. But then you also have to balance that with home responsibilities. So like I said, you may be a parent, you may live alone, you may have roommates, you may have a partner, and those responsibilities come into the way as well. So those are the things like all the stuff that needs to be done, the cleaning, the dishes, the laundry, all those fun things that we don't really want to do, but have to be done at the end of a long day. Caregiving, I touched on briefly. And with caregiving, it comes down to the emotional labor. It's kind of the mental stress that can come from that. Even in the best situations, it's still a lot to care for another soul, whether again, furry or not. So again, it could be children, it could be a loved one, it could be someone older, but that definitely plays a role in your time that you have available, but also on your emotions and what you're kind of dealing with there. Society expectations. This is a big one. I think social media plays a huge role where you might see someone on social media and think, wow, they seem to have like such a great life. They're traveling, they're doing all the things. Why am I not doing those things? So it's hard, right? Because we see those things and they might not always they might look different than they actually are. And I think many of us struggle with perfectionism. We want to do things right. We want to do things well. And sometimes we just have to say, you know what? I'm not going to do it perfect. I'm going to do it as best as I can today. And that's okay. But it's a hard one to get past. Relationships, very similar to caregiving, where there's an emotional side of it that we all face, the good and the bad. And there's also dealing with conflict resolution. So those hard conversations, those things we don't necessarily want to bring up, but we feel like we have to, all of these things can kind of build and create more stress and overwhelm. Lack of self-care time. This is a huge one. I think most people that I run into these days don't take time for self-care. My version of self-care is very broad. So for some people, that's going for a walk. For some people, it's taking a bath. For some people, it's meditating. For some people, it's spending time with others. I don't think we do enough of it or as much as we should be. So lack of self-care time is a biggie. Chronic stress is also known as toxic stress. That kind of builds. And when we don't have an outlet for that, it can, again, like I said, be toxic, and it reduces our resilience. Resilience is huge in just being able to bounce back from all the things and have a good perspective on what we're kind of dealing with. Technology overload, because nothing ever goes wrong with technology, right? We've seen that today. So it's a constant connectivity. That's a hard thing. I know that that's something that I've personally struggled with on and off in my life is, whether it's text messages or phone calls or, pings from different social media areas, or a headline comes up. I've actually put into practice in my own world about having, focus time where I either have my phone off or I have it on some mode that doesn't bug me. Right now it's in work mode, so nothing bothers me. And I think that's huge to do that. I think it's important for everyone to have some space away from the phone. And then also just information overload. We live in a world where there's constant information, whether it's a streaming channel, whether it's a TV channel, which I don't know if anyone has regular just TV channels anymore, but there might be a few. But it's constant. It's Netflix, it's Hulu, it's Fubo, it's Pluto. I mean, there's a million places to find information, and that's not even talking about the internet. So it's everywhere, and it can be overwhelming. All right. So next, we're going to talk a little bit about ADHD. The way that I see ADHD is just a unique way of thinking that brings exceptional strengths and abilities. The textbook version is, however, a neurodevelopment disorder characterized by persistent patterns of inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity that interfere with daily functioning or development. I disagree with the textbook, so that's why I have my own version. I just think that people have different brains. Some people might have ADHD. Some people may be dyslexic. Some people may be autistic. Some people may be a combo. Doesn't mean anything other than we just all think in a different way. I think it's just learning how to click the gears into place to make it work better. So some of our key superpowers are hyperfocus, which basically means we can go down a rabbit hole like nobody else. That can be on anything from, we've decided we want to knit, so we're going to learn everything about knitting since it started from the dawn of time. Or we just saw an airplane fly by, and now we're going to try to figure out the app to find what that airplane was, where it's going, and who might possibly be in on it. This can be hours that we go down this hole. It's super helpful in a work environment because we can get stuff done. What also is another superpower? Creativity and innovation. Again, distinct brain, distinct way of thinking. You come up with some really interesting creative ideas. There is a huge percentage, I think it's 83 to 85% of people with ADHD are entrepreneurial in some way. They have some idea. They might be in the early stages. They might just be something that they want to do, or they might be a full-on entrepreneur. It's because of that creativity and innovation. Boundless energy. I wish I had this one, but I don't. But a lot of people do. I think it's because I'm old, but a lot of people with ADHD do have boundless energy. And I think that's sparked by the hyperfocus, the creativity, the innovation. You can just keep going on something, especially when you're passionate about it. That for sure is true. Resilience and adaptability. I think that, I think this is an interesting one because I do think that we tend to be more adaptable because we've had to live in the world where we are, right? We have to conform to certain things, so we make it work, and it does build resilience. I think there's another side of that where I think it can also be pretty tiring to constantly kind of mask and work in a way that's not natural. But it's a pro and a con for sure. And then spontaneity is the same way. Although some people with ADHD really need structure, most people need some flexibility, whether it's task switching or being able to have focused blocks and then go do something more active. That spontaneity can be super helpful in just kind of managing things. All right, so some ADHD statistics. I share these because I love math. There's a 123% increase in ADHD diagnosis from 2007 to 2016, which I think is crazy. I think that's wild. 4.4% of US adults have ADHD. They actually have a diagnosis, but there are 75% that are undiagnosed. We're going to get into a little bit of the why there, which means 34.1 million US adults are undiagnosed with ADHD. That's kind of the current stats. I think a lot of people are undiagnosed because the average age of diagnosis in women is 38, while in men it's 28. So there's a long time that people go without knowing what's kind of going on. I think that it's getting better. I think that in childhood, there's a lot more awareness now, a lot more testing, which I think is going to help those numbers go down. But it's historically been undiagnosed, and it's been diagnosed as anxiety or depression. Very common for there to be a misdiagnosis, but it's also very common for ADHD to be co-occurring with 50% of people also have anxiety, 40% also have depression. The two kind of seem to go hand in hand. So just some interesting numbers there. All right, so some ADHD key opportunities. I won't go into too much of a rabbit hole with this, but it's just kind of a great awareness. If you yourself have ADHD, you think you might, or you know someone who does. One of the things we struggle with, executive functioning challenges, task paralysis. So basically, I know I need to do the thing, but I can't seem to even start it, which stinks. Disorganization. And then they say procrastination. I don't believe that there's actually procrastination. I think that people quote unquote procrastinate because they either don't know how to do the thing, it's boring, or they're just confused into how to get the steps started. I don't think it's actually just, everything is I don't want to do it. That's not it. People with ADHD aren't lazy. It's just falls into this area that they're not quite sure how to do the thing. Emotional dysregulation. It's not uncommon for people with ADHD to have something called rejection sensitivity disorder. It basically just means that you take things, people can feel like out of nowhere, nobody likes them, everything they say is wrong, and it just kind of amps up for people with ADHD. Heightened emotional response, it can also cause mood swings. Not uncommon to kind of feel that way, which makes sense because people with ADHD tend to have depression or anxiety. So again, two go hand in hand. Cognitive overload, mental clutter. That's a huge one. That's a huge one. There's just a lot going on. There's a lot of noise in there. When I figured out I had ADHD, I was diagnosed late in life, and I didn't know that other people don't constantly have a channel going on in their head of something talking. I was like, what do you mean? How is that possible that you don't have this constant chatter? Yeah, well, okay, that was interesting to find out, right? But it causes a lot of mental clutter. Difficulty focusing, again, if the person's super interested in it though, they can focus, they can hyper focus. And overcommitment. People with ADHD can sometimes tend to not say no to things because we have a hard time, it's going to come up in here, time blindness. We just don't understand the rules of time sometimes. It's like everything's a time portal. So you tend to overcommit because you just don't realize the estimation of the time. And that can come into, work projects as well. It can be difficult to estimate time on a project. So if that's something you struggle with, definitely ask for help. Ask your manager, ask a friend, like, hey, how much time do you think this would take? And it helps you get a better sense of, like, a more concrete understanding of time. We talked a little bit about hyperfocus. We talked a little bit about time blindness, sensory overload, increased irritability. Some people need loud, busy settings to work. Some people need music. Some people need a TV station or a podcast. And some people need it really, really quiet. There's definitely a sensory element to ADHD. I joke all the time about I can only wear one brand of socks in one certain size because otherwise the toes drive me crazy. And I can be walking and that's the only thing I'll be thinking about is the fact that, like, I don't have the right sock on and it feels weird on my toes. Not super helpful, but you learn to deal with these sensory things that make you a little nuts, and you learn to kind of figure out what works best for you. Sleep difficulties, decreased resilience, when you're not sleeping well. So if you have a hard time getting to sleep or falling asleep, it decreases your resilience. And this is for anyone, ADHD or not. It just brings down kind of your immunity, kind of your general sense of well-being. So it decreases your resilience and it increases your cognitive fog. I'm sure Callie can understand because she's working crazy hours right now that it's overwhelming, right? It causes some cognitive brain fog. Perfectionism and imposter syndrome. I think, we touched on that earlier, but I think it's really important. We're not perfect. No one is, but trying to get past that can be really challenging. There's a fear of failure, and there's also the side of imposter syndrome. That's something that we talk about. I know it's talked about in the game industries. I've worked in the game industry. So it's a big one, right? Whether you're an artist or whether you're new enrolled to whatever it is, it's hard to kind of get past that feeling of like, am I supposed to be here? Did they mess up and give me this job? That's normal. We all feel that way sometimes, but it's pushing past that. So whether it's stress and life demands, hormones, or ADHD, there's shared symptoms across the board: fatigue and low energy, sleep disturbances, mood swings and irritability, anxiety and stress, difficulty concentrating and focusing, forgetfulness and disorganization. So the key takeaway here is, you know, I could have been talking about some things with stress and life demands, and you could go, wow, you know what, I can relate to some of that. There could be some things when it comes to ADHD that I talked about where you're like, wow, I think I have, you know, some of those symptoms sometimes. This is the point. Like stress and overwhelm give you all of these things. So it can tend to kind of mishmash together, but these are kind of the things we want to work on. So brief case study. I like to talk about people. This one happens to be me. So I tell my story through this. I had a successful leadership role, but I was always on. And I decided I was going to have 3 properties. I owned 3 homes, and I was taking 3 courses, and I had a side business all at the same time. And I wondered why my brain never turned off, right? My house was a mess. It's clean, but it was just cluttered. There was stuff everywhere because I could never have the time to kind of catch up. Poor sleep, racing thoughts for sure, debilitating stress and anxiety, always worried, always on, lack of focus, weight gain, strained relationships, forgetting to pay bills. This was me. Am I having a mental breakdown? And I'm not kidding when I say these things. I really wondered, and I asked my doctor, is it early onset Alzheimer's? Is it perimenopause? Like, what is going on? Something is really off. And my answer from my doctor was, you're just getting older. It's normal. Oh, that was helpful. Did not know. And this went on for years and I never recognized it. So how do we go from mess on the, well, whatever side it's left to me, it might not be left to you, into something organized, right? How do we get there? I think a lot starts with nutrition. And again, this is for everyone. These are simple things that everyone can do. Eating more protein. If you've eaten today, by any chance, a pastry and a bag of Cheetos, you might want to have some meat. You might want to have a hard-boiled egg. You might want to have some non-animal protein, but something, right? Have some protein. Protein fuels your mind. Your brain needs it. Your brain actually needs protein to function. Plus, it makes your body feel better. Omega-3s, this is another huge one for your brain. You can get it in ways like salmon, mackerel, sardines. I don't eat sardines, but flaxseed, chia seeds, walnuts, or even just a quality, high quality fish oil supplement. Omega-3s, again, that is a fat that is needed for your brain to function. I think of it like the oil in a car. It's super important just to have that there in your brain to think and kind of be able to focus and move about your day. Antioxidant rich foods. We all know we're supposed to eat leafy greens, right? Like everyone knows we're supposed to do that. This is not a big surprise, but I'm going to talk about it from another perspective. So leafy greens, berries, dark chocolate, citrus fruits, nuts, seeds, and herbs. I'm also an herbalist, so I always throw herbs in. Antioxidants help your body fight any what they call free radicals. So kind of like some of the bad guys in your body, they kind of fight those and make your body a better, more well-functioning space. So just adding them in, it can be easy as making like a dinner charcuterie board. So you have some berries, you have some chocolate, you have some fruit, you have some protein, and it's just more of a snacking way to kind of get through your day. Way better. Limiting refined carbs and sugars, and choosing more complex carbs like brown rice, oats, quinoa, and even some fruits and vegetables. Staying hydrated. You're all doing a lot this weekend. Drink your water. Drink your water. Water's great. I add electrolytes to mine. I think it just helps with keeping it keeps it all together, right? From your joints to your brain to the like to your bodily like function and system, your liver, your kidney. It just makes it all work better. If you don't drink a lot of water now, aim to drink at least 8 cups a day. If you're good at that, aim for half of your body weight in ounces. This is my giant cup. And I'm not going to lie, when I first got it, I was excited. It's really heavy. But you know what? Like, I have to get through 3 of these a day and I know I'm okay. So drink your water. Magnesium and zinc. Magnesium and zinc are super helpful when it comes to sleep. There's been a lot of research done on this. So whether it's eating your magnesium and zinc through, again, shocker, leafy greens, nuts and seeds, whole grains. For zinc, it's meat, shellfish, legumes, pumpkin seeds. You can also take a supplement if that's not something you do enough of. Take the supplement. It really helps with sleep. All right, iron-rich foods, red meat, beans, lentils. Iron is huge for making your body. So if you eat it with like a citrus, so vitamin C, it really helps to enhance absorption. Okay, why is iron important? Iron really helps your body when it comes to dopamine. So it's an interesting thing. For some reason, again, lots of studies on this. For some reason, iron is huge in helping people regulate dopamine. Dopamine is the reward hormone. And for people with ADHD, that's something we don't have enough of. So that makes a huge difference. Caffeine is interesting. For some people, caffeine is super helpful and they can sleep right after drinking it. It's, again, another super helpful thing when it comes to like balancing dopamine. But for others, they can't drink caffeine at all because it has the opposite effect and it makes them wired and they can't focus. So being mindful of how your body responds to caffeine, very important. Eating regular balanced meals, we all know that, but try to eat 3 meals a day. Some people are better with 2 meals a day. Some people are better with 5. Whatever it is, like just be consistent and feed your body, listen to your body. Avoiding artificial sweeteners, we all know this, right? Not just sweeteners, but additives. So reading labels, again, start small, find one thing that you want to include. It would be the whole idea of like more leafy greens. That's the best way to start, right? So you start small and add on from there. Movement. This was a game changer for me. Being in an office job, I sat a lot, like all the time. So during COVID, I was working from home for like forever. I started just doing laps in my house. And when it got nice out, I would do quick laps outside. It really helped me rebalance. And again, I had no idea I had ADHD at that point in time. It made a huge difference in just being able to shift into something else, burn a little energy off and get refocused. When we finally did go back to the office, I became known as the weird one that was constantly doing laps in the hall. Because in between meetings, I was sitting and sitting and sitting. And I was like, in between meetings, I would be like, okay, got to get my steps in, got to walk, got to change focus. It really, really helps with being able to focus and be more clear. So it's whatever you're into. Running, cycling, swimming, walking, again, anything cardio is great for just burning off some energy. Strength training is great for the focus, the mind-body connection of it. Things like yoga, Pilates, Tai Chi. I'm huge into Tai Chi these days. It's the only time my brain is quiet because I have to concentrate on what I'm doing so I don't fall and pay attention to where they want my hands to go. So it's those types of mind-body movement that really help your mind and body work, your mind and your brain work together. And then for other people, it's things that are a lot more like quick hit. So hit training, martial arts, team sports, dancing, rock climbing, anything that you can do to move your body in a way you enjoy. I think that's super important. Don't do strength training if you don't like it. Do things you enjoy, right? Because then you're more likely to do it and it's more likely to have the good benefits of like helping to clear your mind and stay focused. Random bug in my room. Awesome. Okay, so on the subject of mindfulness, show of hands, does anyone meditate? Awesome. Okay, we got a few. That's awesome. If you do happen to have ADHD or suspect that you might, meditation can be really, really hard. I didn't think I could. I could never understand how people meditated. I was like, I want to do this thing so bad and I can't. I started with literally 2 to 3 minute guided meditation. Of course, it took me forever to find someone's voice I liked, but it made a difference. And now I'm up to like 10 minutes of guided meditation. Apps like Headspace, Calm, Insight, the other one. Lately, I'm using Unplug. They're really, really helpful. And I think the thing with meditation, if it's something you struggle with but want to do, it's be kind to yourself, like be okay with it, like gently shift your mind back. It's worth the kind of work. And that's why, it's called a practice for a reason, right? It takes time. If you're not ready for that, deep breathing was huge for me. Again, when I was in the corporate world and I was going meeting to meeting, 3 to 5, sometimes more deep breaths to just kind of clear my head, get rid of any negativity, and move forward makes a huge difference. So breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth. It's amazing how much it can help. This is like on this slide, this is my one takeaway for you. Try deep breathing. Like this is a huge thing to just kind of get in the habit of when you're feeling like you have stress or anxiety, or you have a difficult conversation or a difficult interaction. Deep breathing can make a huge, huge difference in your life. Mindful movements is similar. We talked a little bit about that when it comes to like yoga or Tai Chi. Focusing on the sensations in your body as you move through the poses. Again, walking is great, especially bonus points if you're in nature, because there's a little bit of the grounding, earthing side of things if you're in nature, which is great. And then setting a daily routine. I think having routines is really important. Whether it's just, you have a great morning routine or a bedtime routine or both, they're really important. Like if you're flying out of the house every day and wondering, like, you don't know where your stuff is, don't know where your phone is, don't feel bad. I was there too. It's really helpful if you can just kind of set and start with a super easy morning routine of 3 things, have everything in I do this. I have a little basket by my back door. And all my stuff goes in there at the end of the night. Like I put my phone in there because I'm not doom scrolling at night anymore. Everything goes in there at night. And I have my keys, everything's there. So I'm not flying out the door every day. I just have it and I know where my stuff is. Work on a morning routine first, I think is super helpful. Okay. So journaling, if you're someone that enjoys that, that's a great way to work through any of the challenges your day, but also to do, things that are more positive, whether it's affirmations or gratitude. These are all things I did not do for years in my life. And I was astounded. I thought it was a little woo-woo, but I was astounded at the difference in my level of positivity and hopefulness in the day when I started just being more mindful about, hey, these are 3 things I'm grateful for today. It makes a big difference. Grounding, as I talked about, it's being out in nature is a huge help with that. It's really just focusing on your senses. What are things you can see? What are the 4 things you can touch? 3 things you hear, 2 things you can smell, 1 thing you can taste. It's a simple practice to just walk through it because it takes you out of whatever's spinning in your head and puts you into actually just being present in the moment. It's another really cool, I forget to do this one as much as I should, but it's just another great way to just get grounded in the moment. Body scanning is very similar if you're familiar with that. It's basically just lying down and then going from the tips of your toes to the top of your head and just saying like, how do my toes feel? Do I feel a tingle? It's just, again, any way to connect your mind and body is a huge step in getting to be more mindful. And this is all self-care. This is all considered in my book, self-care. Okay. Which on the subject of self-care, huge. Sleep hygiene. All right. So again, I won't go through all the points. The important thing to know with sleep is if you can maintain a consistent sleep schedule. Obviously it's a little harder on the weekends, or, when you're off routine, whatever it is, but it is really important. And it's important to have a sleep environment that works for you. So a lot of people need it to be cool, dark, quiet. That's kind of from a studied perspective. That's kind of what they say is the best way to sleep. But if that doesn't work for you, find what does. Sleep is the number 1 starting point of being able to have like a calm and restful mind. Because if you don't sleep well, it can throw the whole dang day off. Okay, power naps, because work allows that, right? Like, yeah, I'm just gonna go take a nap. Doesn't work that way, right? But in the weekends, if you can, grab a power nap. It's huge how it changes and can help you feel refreshed. So those are some biggies on sleep. Setting boundaries, easier said than done. Trying to say no, being aware of overcommitment, something that I use a lot because I will have a huge list of things to do and go, what am I supposed to do first? I don't know what to do. I use the Eisenhower matrix, which is basically important and urgent, non-important, non-urgent. You can look it up easily. I like that there's a new way of doing it now where they split it out instead of urgent and important, they split it out into do, schedule, delegate, and delete. And that's worked way better for my brain. So I put the things in the do that I'm like, I absolutely have to get these things done. Like, this is important. I have deadlines, and nothing for me ever goes in the delete column because I'm like, if I didn't have to do the thing, what I wouldn't do it. But so it's cool that it's there. Someday, hopefully I'll use it. But then it's schedule. Like, hey, this is something I need to get to, but I don't need to do it today. It allows me, I always have it a visual. It allows me to just be able to kind of work down my list and not get overwhelmed by not knowing what to do. Environment's huge. So it's having people around you that are positive, that are good for you, right? That support you and that are positive in your life is huge. It's also important to have a physical space that does the same, right? So having a place, if you're someone that doesn't mind living in clutter, don't stress it. If you're someone where clutter really stresses you out and makes it so you can't relax, work on it little by little. So it's having an environment that works for you. I love to throw in massage and body work because, hey, it's great. I wish we could all go get massages all the time when we're feeling stressed, right? That would be super. But if you can get that, I have one of these. My husband and I did splurge on one of the massage things. It's a big long mat. I got to tell you, look it up on Amazon. It's amazing. It's literally like having a massage at home. It's great. So that might be something to look into if that's something you enjoy. Okay, cool hacks. These are my favorite. With ADHD, there's a lot of gamification of how we do things in life. So setting up a reward system, and I'll use just simple examples. Like, if you hate washing dishes, give yourself a reward right after. Like, I'm going to get these done, and then I'm going to allow myself to just do nothing or doom scroll or play a game, like whatever it is. But I have to do the thing first. Like, it does make a big difference for a lot of people. Body doubling. There are some amazing body doubling apps out there. If you don't know what body doubling is, it's basically having someone else, either in person or virtually, talking on the phone, on a webcam, whatever, while you're doing the thing to help give you more motivation. And again, this is true even if you don't have ADHD. Having someone else to work with, like, and I'm sure you've experienced at work, there's sometimes where you're working on something alone and you're just feeling like I'm not making progress, but you have someone else in the room or you have someone you can talk to, you start making more progress, right? It's a similar concept. And there are some really cool apps out there for it. Habit stacking and habit triggering. I'm gonna walk through an example of that. But basically, habit stacking is where you build a new positive habit on top of a habit that you already have. So it basically doubles the fun. A habit trigger is something that's a reminder to do the habit, right? It's leaving your toothbrush out, right? So you remember to brush your teeth. And then reminder apps. You can't see it in here or else I would show it to you. I probably have 35 reminders and they're fun because it's, hey, 30 minutes. There's one on here for today. 30 minutes before, 15 minutes before, why are you still listening to your reminder? These are actually the reminders labeled in my phone because it means go do the thing instead of just ignoring your reminders. I have them for laundry. I have them when I cook so I don't burn the house down. I have them for everything in life and it makes a huge difference. Timers, that's another thing, super helpful. You can do those on your phone, and then having the morning and evening routines. Okay, so this is a simple walkthrough. I'm going to walk through the morning one first. Actually, I'm going to walk through just that one because it's similar. So you already have an existing habit. You wake up and turn off your alarm, right? That's something we do. New habit, if you wanted to, like, add in 3 deep breaths before getting out of bed. So that's just like, okay, my trigger is waking up and turning off my alarm. My new habit, the habit I'm stacking on that, is taking 3 deep breaths. Another example, like brushing your teeth. I leave my toothbrush out because I would forget. So when I go in the bathroom, I see it. I have to use it. You would stack on top of that. After you brush your teeth, have your first glass of water. So these are just easy things. Like, okay, if you brew coffee every morning, what do you want to stack on that? So it's just easy as having something that you're already doing. Instead of making it harder, you're just building on what you already do. Okay, helpful apps. I will send this list out. So after this presentation, I talked to Callie and I'm going to be able to send out some information. So I'm going to send this to you because it makes no sense for me to walk through it. But if there's something that you're struggling with, whether it's building habits, staying focused, organizing, whatever it is, this is just a helpful little guide for you to look through and go like, hey, I'm going to try that. I highly recommend Finch. You build a burb. He's the best. Mine's an adult now. He has a little micro pet, and it's a habit building app, right? It's gamification. It's what we do. So basically, it's just a great way to build habits because you put in there what you want to do every day. You check it off, you make progress. Forest is another great one for focus. So if you need to focus, the app basically says, okay, if you don't touch your phone and you're just staying focused on what you need to do, you grow trees and you build a forest. It's very cool. It's a really fun way to kind of stay focused. So there's a lot of cool, fun ones in there. So I'll send that list out to you all. Okay, so how do you put it all into place? So this was me. What I had to learn was, number one, I had to learn that I had ADHD. And I figured that out as we all figure everything out in life right now on the internet. That's how we get all of our best information, right? So I was like, hey, this could be it. So I talked to my husband, I talked to my best friend, and they're like, yeah, no, that's probably you. So then I talked to my doctor, my therapist, finally got a diagnosis. I shut a lot of things down in life. Like for me, I was one of those people that was really happy to have a diagnosis because I finally, my whole life, didn't know what was going on. And I finally understood. So I was happy to figure it out. I run my own business, just one. We sold 2 of the other properties. I literally went from sleeping on average 3.5 hours a night to 7.5, which is crazy. I use the Aura Ring. If anyone's familiar with that, like I've changed from my Fitbit because things were bothering me on my wrists. So I went to the Aura Ring, and it's amazing how my nighttime routine changed my sleep so incredibly, right? I really do have a solid morning and evening routine, even on the weekends. I look forward to it. That's how I was able to get there. Like I started looking forward to what I do in the morning and forward to what I do at night instead of it feeling like a job. Losing weight in a slow, healthy way instead of trying like everything under the sun and buying more crap from infomercials and TikTok ads. Don't do that anymore. That's great. Was able to actually enjoy spending time with people again because I wasn't so stressed and constantly thinking there were other things I should be doing. Got my finances in order, put everything on auto pay, have monthly budget meetings, and it's great. There's even on my list, there's even budgeting stuff as well, if that's something that you struggle with. So this is kind of a really easy 3-step way to do it. Identify your key challenges. I say start with one. Like start with one thing that's really driving you crazy, whether it's prioritization. Like I listed out some examples, but like start with one thing and then, okay, that's going to be the one thing that I work on. Organization, break it down even further. How are you going to do that? Okay, I'm going to focus on one room first. Like I always tell, like when I work with clients, and what I'll tell them is like, start with your bedroom. Your bedroom needs to be an oasis. Like it needs to be the happiest place on earth. So start there. For some people, like, okay, once you do that, I'm onto my kitchen. I can't even cook in there. Okay, let's work on that, right? So start small, whatever it is. And then choose the right apps and strategies. It does take time. For me, like I went through several apps before I found Finch to find one that actually worked. But you get something in place. So if it's organization, set a timer. I'm going to do 5 minutes, start small, and just kind of power through it until it starts to get done. And then it's building the daily routine, right? So it's really tiny, small steps are the way to get there, right? Because it wasn't built in a day. Like you don't learn, even though they say like it takes 3 weeks to build a new habit. I don't find that to be accurate for most people. So you just start small and you just start making it more of a habit with things like habit triggers, habit stacking. You just slowly kind of build onto there. Okay, so if you want to, this is what I do. I help people with organization, time management, focus, productivity, routine building, all that type of stuff. I do have some free stuff that I offer. I do free stuff all the time. I love to just kind of get the word out. I do have a free challenge coming up in December. It's my last one of the year. And it's 5 days. You can do it from anywhere. The link comes to you in an email and it says, okay, today you're going to work on organization, and it's one tiny space, or we're going to work on decluttering, or we're going to work on, a new way to focus. So every day has a new challenge, and it's just a great way to like very low lift, like try some new things in a supportive way. So questions. Does anyone have any questions? Anything specific that they struggle with, they want some ideas on, like anything goes.
Yeah, if anyone has any questions, feel free to raise your hand. Also, if you're watching from home, feel free to post your questions in the Wolfjam General Discord chat. We can also ask them on here for you. I know one of my questions, oops, that one's not working. I know one of my questions that I have for you, Jen, is what is one of your favorite routines that you have currently set for yourself, whether morning or afternoon? What is something that you cannot live without now that is part of your routine?
That's an easy one. I'll talk about one in the morning and one at night. In the morning, I allow myself, I actually label it coffee and chill. It's in my Finch app as coffee and chill. I was just always manically running, like alarm goes off. It's like a fire drill, like boom, shoot out of bed, brush your teeth, hopefully shower. Where are the dogs? It was a nightmare. So I started getting up a half hour earlier, which why would I want to do that? I do it because I love it now. I lay in bed. It's quiet. It's cool. I drink my coffee. My dogs are all snuggled in and I just enjoy it. I write down my gratitude and affirmations at that time. And then I get out of bed and I stretch and then I start my manic day, which is great. Like that was a game changer for me to actually enjoy mornings. And at night, I'm not going to lie, I bought myself a red light therapy lamp. Not an expensive one at all. It's kind of janky, but that's okay. It's awesome. It feels great. It's like this red light and it just feels wonderful. Like it's just a lovely way to go to sleep at night. So I do that every night too.
Awesome, thank you. Anyone else have any other questions or anything like that? Perfect. Here you go.
So I wanted to touch on something that you talked about earlier with both RSD and imposter syndrome. How did you find, especially early on, before you knew it was ADHD, like knowing that you would have these like have emotional outbursts to the perception of people rejecting an idea you had or something that you proposed, or maybe a project you were working on has been falling apart? How do you compartmentalize that, especially if you're, say, a junior in the field and you're going through that imposter syndrome of I don't belong here, on top of the oh my God, I can't do any of this, no one likes me, that RSD comes with?
Yeah, absolutely. It's great. It's great. Like I wish I knew when I was younger, because I didn't know how to handle it then. It was just always kind of on me. What I learned over time, so I'm not gonna lie, part of it was masking. Like I was like, oh, I just can't do this. What I healthily learned to do with working with a therapist, that was a big one for me. I learned to do a lot of journaling and I learned to take a beat and have a conversation with the person or with someone that I trusted about it, to like basically separate myself from the situation for a little while, journal about it and say, you know what, I can't live here in this space. I need to set a time, and it would be 24 hours that I was going to turn around and have a conversation with someone about it to learn. But I had to get into a mindset of understanding that I needed to learn why I was feeling this way. And it took a long time. Therapy really helped me with that, but it also took a lot of just self-reflection and trying to figure out what was happening, and having really supportive people around me.
All right, we have one over here.
Do you want to hold it? Hello. This question is coming from the perspective of a college student or an early career professional. What are some things that we might do during our free time that might disguise themselves as self-care, that might actually be contributing to what I like to refer to as the rot?
So let me make sure I got it right. So would these be things that you think are good for yourself, but are really not helping the situation?
Yeah, so I think when people are really overwhelmed or they have busy schedules, sometimes when they finally get that little interval of free time, they might engage in certain activities or behaviors that are like their de-stress behaviors. But what are some things that you sometimes see, while acknowledging that everybody's different,
Yeah.
that might be not helping?
Yeah. So I know this is not the right crowd for this. Gaming sometimes. To the extent, especially if someone, I'm going to use a really specific example on that one. It's something that I dealt with, right? Like if you're on mobile games and you're just hitting the spend, that $3.99, okay, I'm going to buy more energy, I'm going to buy more time, right? Those are things that people don't talk about that they do in their life that happen. So that's a huge one. I think these are really common. I'll do like the top 5 that I see. Shopping, online shopping, like, oh, I'm going to treat myself to this and it's late at night and I'm going to procrastinate. So I'm just going to kind of browse and I'm going to buy like shit on Amazon, right? Or whatever it is. That's a big one. Doom scrolling at night. There's this thing called reverse bedtime procrastination. So you finally get to bed, but you force yourself to stay up. I have a client that does this all the time and she's really trying. Like, she will actually make herself get up and move so she doesn't fall asleep, so she can continue to just scroll and watch TV. So it feels, and we've spent a lot of time talking about it, like it feels good because her brain can finally like unwind a little to just like mindlessly scroll, have background noise on, and be in a comfortable environment. But it's killing her sleep. Like she's staying up till like 1 o'clock in the morning and has to get up for work at 6. Like it's killing her sleep, but it feels so good. So that's a big one. Overeating, that's another big one. And even sometimes for people, it's again, just a comfort. So it's identifying the why, right? So scrolling, spending, I mean, there's some other really bad habits, gambling, like there's a lot of other things that go around, but those are the biggies. And I think you didn't ask this part, but I'll say it, is like figuring out why you're doing it. Are you getting comfort from that? Are you lonely, right? Like if that's the case, call a friend, like talk to someone or reach out, like Discord, like talk to someone, right? If that's trying to identify why you're doing the thing is always at the heart of the matter. So you can figure out the better way to manage it.
Awesome. Any other questions from anyone in the room? Oh, perfect.
Hi. So you talked about how like hormones have an effect on ADHD. And I was just thinking for like people with like estrogen or progesterone dominant hormones, that cycle is really long. That's like over a course of a month rather than a day. How do you give yourself stability as that is kind of your brain function is shifting?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually have a whole talk on for just women because I really go into like all the different phases and the different things and ways to support it. I talk about exercise at different cycle times. It's a lot to get into here. What I will do is I'll get in touch with Callie. I can actually send you some information on that because I think it's hugely important. But basically what it comes down to is there's different ways to work within those times, right? So, and it's very different. So like a lot of it has to do with movement. That's really, really helpful at different times of what you're going through from a hormonal perspective, different ways of eating, different ways of sleeping. And I make sure like with my female clients, that we really pay attention to that because it just throws the whole thing off. Like I'm perimenopausal. Wow, like that's a roller coaster. Like I'm so glad that many of you will not have to go through for the people that are not women in the room because that's a ride and a half. So it comes down to being very mindful of what your body's going through and having like I kind of call it my cheat sheet of like okay, this is where my body is in this phase and this is what I can do to support it the best way possible. So I will get that to you because I think it's really important. It's a great question. Like I said, I do a whole talk on it because I'm fascinated with it.
Awesome. I think we'll have that be our last question then of today. Let's give another big round of applause for Jen Morse. Thank you again so much for giving your time and having such an amazing talk, helping us just think differently about how it can be better and be more organized and be our best selves. For anybody who wants to stay connected, we will have Jen's information available to be able to share. And as she said, we do have an email that will be going out after the event. After we have all the VODs and recordings up, you guys can happily rewatch her talk. And then we will also be sending out the resources that she will be providing us. But if you have any questions at all, feel free to reach out to myself or Jen's information that is up here. And I know she would be happy to talk to any of y'all.
And Callie, do you have a way with for the woman with the last question? Do you have a way to get for me to get that to her?
Yes, we can get her information for you.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
Of
Awesome.
course.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Awesome. Have a good one, Jen, and everyone. Have a good rest of Wolfjam.